Hello, sunshine. We got a mind boggler for you today. We've went and tested the single ring versus two ring theory, application. I've never been taught what to think in my life. I've always been taught how to think. That's because I'm a little older, and that's what they used to teach you, was how to think. There's two types of people in this world. Those that can come up with the answer through partial information. This test will make you think. And that's what chainsaw building is to me, is how to think. Now, Jason Tongue Power Saws, I appreciate you being in there a lot, and you keep trying to get me to cut the squish and take some off the base, and I understand that. Those are good gains and easy gains, but that's not what this particular saw is about for me. It's hunting all the little things that I can do. I'm not being a contrarian in that I'm not doing it. It's just I'm on a different path right now with this saw. That's why I like chainsaws. I don't think I'll ever figure it all out. And if I ever do, I'll be done with them. No interest in them anymore whatsoever because I'm done learning about them. To me, it's all about the journey, not about the destination. But I'm learning. I'm trying little bitty things. This saw here, we've put I don't know how many little bitty things in there that'll pull a tenth or a quarter of a horsepower, and you stack 20 or 30 of them together, and we've made it up to right near 5 horsepower without the air filter on it. And I'm not saying that machine work wouldn't put me up close to 6 maybe. It's not that. It's about the journey, and I'm taking my little baby steps first. It's kind of like the old machinists in Germany. The first thing they did teaching a person to be a machinist is give them a piece of a file, not even a whole file, and a chunk of steel, and they had to make a perfect 1-inch cube out of it, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 1.00, 1.00, or whatever their measurement was. And a guy might say, well, why don't you just stick it over in a CNC machine, it'll do it for you. Well, sometimes it's about the learning. Teaching you to use your tools, teaching you to do this, teaching you to do that. That's where I'm at with chainsaws. I'm way behind everybody else. I could do some machining and catch up, but that's not the point. So don't think I'm just avoiding it being a contrarian. I'm learning along the ways. I haven't figured out how to make that cube with a file yet, so we're working on that. This test here that I done 2 ring versus 1 ring is that the results are going to make you think. I hope they do, and I hope you'll join in the comments. I don't know what's going on in there. The results were not what I expected. Okay, it changed the horsepower curve. Typical of what I think of an iron horse build, a good work saw. Boy, you got a nice broad band to work on. It may not be as peaky. This single ring took some of that out. I lost some, but I gained some. So I lost here and I gained there. You know, I don't know what caused that. That gives me something to think about. We'll get some test cuts. We're going to get some measurements. We're going to get some heat runs. Man, we're going to have all kinds of information. And I'll probably put her in the wood for just a little bit. For the new guys that just found the channel, I'll probably throw my old chainsaw song on over the top of it. It's a parody of the old country song Hot Rod Lincoln. I think you'll like it. And it mentions Iron Horse in there, and to give credit where credit's due, it mentions Iron Horse, and no, I didn't ask him permission to put his name in my little parody. I just having fun. I don't think it was insulting. And I try to start a little bit of fight in between Steels and the Husky guys. I don't care. I just want to argue what the best saw is against what somebody else has, because I'm a contrarian. If somebody else is carrying a Steel, I'll tell them that's the junkest thing ever was built. If they're carrying a Husky, that's the worst thing ever was built. Guys, join in, have some fun. We're going to have us a good time today, but we're doing some serious testing too. And we're sawing up this stuff off the sawmill. Guys, that'll throw a chain faster than anything you ever seen, faster than diarrhea. We're running no junk chain. She's semi-chisel, so round cutter. The safety, got all them safety doodads in there like they come from Walmart or whatever. And she ain't too grabby, and I know it's dull. Don't care, having a good time.
My pappy said, son, you're going to drive me to drugs if you don't quit porting them chainsaws jugs. Have you heard the story of the work saw race where Iron Horse and Tin Man were setting the pace? That story's true. I know the deal because I was running a hot rod steel. It's got a clamshell motor and it's really souped up. That crack top cover makes it look like a pup. It's got a 20-inch barn. It uses it all with 30,000 acres. It just won't stall. It's got a ported intake and Iron Horse exhaust with an 8-pin sprocket. You can really get lost. It goes through white oak just like it's pine. The crank is good and the piston's fine. Walked out to the woods one cool day. It was easy to see winters headed this way. I was barred in deep, laying on the dogs, loving my saws and bucking some logs. All of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, a logger with a husky passed me by. I said, "Look out, boys, that's a saw for me." By then, sawdust was all you could see. Now the fellas all know I run my saws a little fat, but I couldn't let a husky get away with that. Pulled out my screwdriver and without a doubt, I turned the high jet and I leaned her out. Wound it up to 15.6, going through logs just like they're sticks. The saw was pulling hard and on the pipe for sure. That's all they is. They ain't no more. Boys all thought I was crazy as hell. Sawdust looked like a rooster's tail. They said, "Slow down, your crank's gonna bust. The chain's throwing noodles, not just dust." Smoke was coming from under the cover when I started to catch that husky lover. I knew I could outcut him and his husky cull, but what did you know, by then my chain's getting dull. We had real fine dust coming out of the side. The bar was turning blue. Man, what a ride. I said, "Look out, boys, this baby'll cut." He loaded up his husky and got back to his truck. Now all of a sudden my saw started shaking. I didn't chamfer enough. The nickel was flaking. I looked at the ground. My bar oil was leaking. I'd give that carp too much tweaking. I stripped the saw down and put it on the bench. Called my pappy to bring me a wrench. He said, "Son, you're going to drive me to drugs if you don't quit porting them chainsaw jugs."
I'm sure my measuring method could be refuted, but it's the best I could come up with, so that's what I'm going to use. I know that I'm exactly 6 inches from the center line to where this piece of wire is hanging right here, so that'll be easy to calculate the parasitic loss into horsepower. It'll be a fraction, but it'll be easy to calculate. It's something we can put a number on. What I'm doing, I got my hand on the flywheel over here to steady it. I'm trying to do away with that with inertia, because you can see if I just let the inertia have it, I mean, I let that just trickle down there by hand until I hit 45 degrees. Now this is not going to hold at 45 degrees, and your perception may be different than mine. What I'm looking for is I want to see how much weight it takes to move this 15 degrees. And real slow. I want to try to keep the inertia out of it with my hand over here. And this is down here at say 90 degrees. The right angle distance, I shortened my lever. While this thing changed 15 degrees, it shortened my lever, which is this. So we're going to start off as close as we can to 90. 90 degrees on the tool here. I'm showing about 45 there on my perception. So I'll let the inertia off this real slow, and I'm going to speculate this should go to about 65 degrees. It's not 100% repeatable. It's about 75% repeatable. Anyhow, I come up above it, and I let that come down till we're about 45 degrees by my perception, and I start letting off that real slow. Now I expect it to move, and I expect to be able to pull my hand off that at 65 degrees, which is essentially shortened my fulcrum or my lever, and it made it about 62 or 63. 38.19 grams at 6 inches. So we can figure horsepower from that. we'll throw that up here. It'll be tomorrow before I do this. What I want to do is on the same day, same atmosphere. Even though I do a correction factor on my dyno, I'm not sure it's 100%, so I'm going to try to do this all in one day within a couple hours. 2 rings, regular plug, regular decomp. About 173 and a half, 4.5, about 174 and a half. Was about 176 with the other decomp. No plug in there, of course. I ought to get on my hard hat for this next part, my explanation of what I think is going on with a single ring versus double ring. I think it's a whole lot like marriage and marriage licenses. Have I ever told you my theory on marriage licenses? I think they ought to be like fishing licenses. Just expire every year. If you don't want to go fishing next year, don't renew your marriage license, see? And there could be all kinds of things, you know. There could be the game warden out there. He's making sure you don't, you know, you're not fishing out of season. The big thing is, I shouldn't, man, I need to go get my hard hat. We'll call that the bag limit for you guys that hunt. You're just allowed one at a time, see? So that's 1 ring at a time. You put on 2 rings, buddy, you got friction. Just like marriage. You try to wear 2 rings, buddy, you got some friction. So we're just going to wear 1 ring. We're going to try to keep mama happy. Used to think that was funny about comparing it to a marriage license, but then you're a guy like me and you find somebody that ain't too bad, puts up with you, and you're like, well, maybe I better rethink my stuff, because I really don't want that in getting away. But anyhow, I think we're going to lose some friction. I'm going to run this and do the dyno runs, and probably do a little bit of cutting before I do the parasitic drag measurement on this, because I want it to be even Steven, if you will. I want to run it a little bit. That way, whenever I shut it off, it's got theoretically the same amount of oil coating the cylinders it would have had, which could mess with your parasitic drag measurements. This Hylamar Blue that somebody turned me on to, supposed to be able to put it back together, and basically as soon as I get this thing back together, we'll run her. So you shouldn't do it first pull since I put it together, so that's usually where you get egg on your face, but we'll try her. My turn, Salt. Let's get her on dyno. Okay, so it's cooled back down just like when I tested the other one for compression. And there's the compression. I'd say that's just about as close to being exactly what it was. It may have lost maybe a 1/4 pound difference. Okay, everybody, we got Golly, got egg on my face now for sure. Dadgummit, I messed this test up. We're gonna do the best we can with it, guys. Everybody knows I ain't no rocket surgeon, no brain scientist. I miscalculated though, or misjudged. I think my calculations are good, but I misjudged. A while ago, it took 38.19 grams to pull at 6 inches to pull this from 45 degrees after top dead center to 65 degrees. I'm going to bring her up there to 45 degrees, and then we're going to turn around here. From my parallax, that's about 45 degrees. So I'm going to turn over here, and I'm going to grab me some washers, and look what happens. Yeah, a while ago it took right at 40 grams out here to pull that down. Now just the vice grips is too heavy. My knee jerk was I'll put my shorter vice grips on there, but then I won't be calculating any of the mass and the varying mass and the degrees that this amount of mass from here forward has on that, and this amount of mass from here to here has more on that. And you have to figure that in if you're really trying to get technical. And I'm kind of I don't know, I'm trying to be a happy medium in between redneck and super genius scientist. And it looks like we went way on the redneck side this time because I got egg on my face. But I'm going to try to leave the inertia out. That's about 45 degrees on my parallax. So I'm going to see where it'll stop. And actually, if I don't let it build up a head of steam like I did just a minute ago messing with you guys, it was stopping at about 70 degrees. So I don't think I can calculate. I ain't smart enough to calculate what the difference would be. Yeah, this is going to go on past 70. I'm up to 75 on my parallax, on my where I'm looking. But guys, suffice it to say, I'm going to use. There's far less tension. Sorry about that. We'll have to try it again on another one. I don't know what you think. I've got all the results done, so I know how they turned out, and that's just about as much egg on my face as everything else. The differences here is about like trying to time a drag car with a calendar. I think I did okay. Don't get me wrong. I've got some results. They're goofy when they ain't what you expected, I guess is what I'm going to say. Guys, let me know what you think. Let me know where I messed up. And these results are going to be so much open for interpretation. I want you guys to look at them and let me know how you interpret it. Okay, let's go over these results, see what we can do. This is going to be the worst one to understand. I don't know how to make it any better yet. These are the heat results on the dyno runs. This is a 2-ring dyno run. This is a single ring dyno run. I'll explain the bars here in a minute. This pair over here is the 2-ring heat run and the single ring heat run. Okay. Now each one of these are broken down into 2 different heat sections. The blue, which looks a little gray to me, is the head temperature when it's cool. The red is the head temperature at the end of the dyno pull in this instance, and the green is the difference between the two, meaning 185 degrees it started out, it reached 282, that's a difference of 97 degrees. The first line is the horsepower that it pulled at the dyno run. The next one you're going to see is the exhaust temperature. The exhaust temperature started out at 208. At the end of my dyno pull, it was 502 degrees on the 2-ring piston, which was a difference of 294 degrees. We've got another fly in the ointment here in that it was right at 10 degrees ambient temperature hotter when I done this test than when I did this test. It's all on the same day, just a couple hours apart. But anybody that knows about wind chill and stuff like that, it's blowing warmer air across that saw trying to cool it down. I'm not trying to make excuses, I'm just letting you know the factors that are in here that I don't know how to account for yet. It was 10 degrees hotter. We've got that in the correction, so I still believe the horsepower is right. We lost a little bit of max horsepower. So on a single ring dyno run, we started out similar. We started, 7 degrees higher, but went but we only climbed almost 20 degrees lower. We cooled head temperature, meaning the difference in the dyno run on the twin ring, 2-ring, was 97 degrees, where the difference was only 73 degrees here, which means we lost, what, 24 degrees for quick math? So we lost a lot of heat in that cylinder. Part of it, you could say, is horsepower, because horsepower equals heat. We had less horsepower, therefore we should have less heat. Now, on the exhaust temperature, my single ring started out way higher, and I'm not sure why. I did not change carb settings between the two, because the carb settings affect this so much. I mean, I could make a chainsaw swing a half a horse just in carb settings pretty daggum easy. So the cool temperature where we started out, the twin ring started out with a cooler exhaust temperature. Of course, it was 10 degrees cooler outside, but that's well more than 10 degrees. But the interesting part, to me, it only climbed, the twin ring climbed to 502, and the single ring only climbed to 504. Difference is what I like. The difference in temperature from where it started to where it climbed was 294 degrees Fahrenheit on the 2-ring, and only 220 degrees Fahrenheit on the single ring. 2-ring climbs 70 degrees more in essentially the same amount of time. One run was 32 seconds, one was 34. I got them pretty similar. So let me know what you guys think about that. Charts are kind of indicate to me that the single ring is running a little bit less horsepower, but a lot cooler, and that's just peak horsepower. We'll get to that here in a minute. Now, when I do my heat runs, for people that's just found the channel, what I do is I let this saw cool down after the dyno run. I let the head temperature cool down to about 240, 245 degrees, which gives me just a little bit of set time, because I rev that saw up and I pull it down with my dyno to 10,000 RPMs, okay? So I start my heat runs at a head temperature of 250 degrees. Ignore that decimal point, that's 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is the horsepower that it pulled at 10,000 RPMs. The twin ring heat run, it pulls 397 or 3.97 horsepower at 10,000 RPMs. The single ring pulled 3.92 at 10,000 RPMs. They were very similar at 10,000 RPMs. Where our difference was in our heat again, and not so much on the head temperature. It started out at 250 degrees and went to 337 degrees. Now on the single ring, it started at 250 and went to 339. I expected to see more of a difference than that, and I expected this in here to be a little bit less, but the single ring was actually 2 degrees hotter, but ambient temperature was 10 degrees hotter. So like I say, back with the wind chill factor. Exhaust temperature, again, the single ring started out a little bit higher, about 25 degrees higher, and it climbed to within 7 degrees. And again, it's the heat difference that I'm interested in mostly, which was the twin ring. I climbed 194 degrees on my exhaust temperature in that 1 minute exact time frame. I only climbed 176 single ring in that heat run. So what's that tell us? I don't know. You tell me. Now stick with me. On the face of it, the single ring's running less horsepower. Let's go to the dyno charts. Now the red line, both red lines are the single ring piston, and we maxed out at 4.13 horsepower at 9,969 RPMs. 2-ring, we maxed out at 4.3 horsepower at 9,943. So at 26 RPMs difference, which is just about immeasurable, we lost about 0.17 horsepower. But the torque, we actually picked up just a little bit on the torque, and we picked up the torque, and we moved the max torque up just a little bit higher. We was at 2.53 foot-pounds at 7360, and we was at 2.52 at 7206. Now 0.01 foot-pounds, again, I'll say that's pretty immeasurable. What really gets me is this area right here and this area right here, and that's going to come down to runnability of the saw, I think. Iron Horse is well known, in my opinion, for running basically a big old long flat curve. His Iron Horse pipe looks like this compared to a peakier pipe. He builds a saw that is not peaky. He builds a saw that he claims for the working man, the logger, the tree feller, whatever, a work saw. That's what he says, work saw. Okay. Now I do believe this power curve is a whole lot flatter. It may be easier to run, and it may make it feel like it has more horsepower peak than this one here, because this one comes to work early. It shows up half hour before it's time to start, and it works through lunch right here, and then okay, it's about the same, and then it stays after work here. Our peaks were within 26 RPMs of each other, which I expect to see that because of the timing did not change. What did change was the parasitic drag, which let us stretch out quite a bit higher. So from about 11,700 to, we gained about 700 RPMs up here before we ever crossed. And then we hung in there like a hare and a biscuit through here, and then we gained on the other side of it too. Now, guys got to ask himself, why did I lose in here? I have a speculation. At the 4 horsepower mark, we had more RPMs on this side and more RPMs on this side. It was only above 4 horsepower that the double ring worked out to us. Now, what I'm wondering is if this is not like taking out your ice pick and poking a hole in a semi-tire. She'll blow up on you and blow your hand plumb away from the tire, or taking an ice pick and poking a hole in a beach ball. Yeah, it just kind of peters out. I'm wondering if we're not losing compression past the first ring, and the second ring's holding more of it right here. So meaning right here, our parasitic drag and lack of parasitic drag's winning. Right here, the more torque you put on this saw, the more time it's trying to hold more pressure to push that piston down. You guys have to let me know what you think, and then once we get back down just a little bit down in here, then the lack of parasitic drag takes over and overcomes the effect of what that second ring is holding. Now what we're going to do here is we're back to the cut factor again, and I like my cut factor. It's a moving target for me too. There's growing pains here, guys. What I did on this one, I'm going to run you up here to my numbers. The single ring above peak horsepower, meaning peak horsepower was down here at my lowest reading, but basically I started about 10,300 or as close as I had a reading to it, and then went up 500 degrees, took a horsepower reading there, and went up 500 more and took a horsepower reading there. This cut factor was doing what I did on the last time, which was put the peak horsepower right here in the middle, and then I took basically 400 or 500 above or below and 400 or 500 above, and I averaged those three together to give us a cut factor. So I played this both ways. You guys tell me what you think's right. I want to be assured to my own mind that I'm not skewing the numbers to make it show results that I think they ought to be, because a person can do that very easily. So the single ring above peak horsepower and the 2 rings above peak horsepower, that is a 1,000 RPM range. The low end of that range will be at peak horsepower, so that'll be the curve. So the single ring gave us a cut factor of 4.3, which was higher than the double ring of 4.09. Conversely to that, if I run it the other way, the single ring, if I run it just on both sides of peak, the reason I did the peak or the other above peak is that range was so flat, it didn't change much. So I wanted to incorporate more of that flat. I wanted to see more of the benefit of that flat horsepower curve and torque curve that the single ring had. So I done it both ways. If you measure them all, the single ring above peak horsepower was still a faster cut factor than this one here. The best I can, I'm trying to be impartial. So guys, stop these charts anywhere along the way and tell me what you think they mean. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, guys.